Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of All in All with Alex. I'm your host, of course, Alex, and today we have a very special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself. I'm going to let him tell you just a little bit of background about himself, and then we'll dive into a few questions that we may have.
Thank you, first of all, Alex, for having me on your show. It's an honor and a pleasure. So, a little bit about me. I didn't know what I want to do when I grow up, so I switched careers 9 times and jobs over 18 times. In the process of doing so, I got into recruiting, where I've worked as a generalist recruiter for companies like Deloitte, Apex Pharmaceutical, Tata Consulting Services, and many, many more small to global companies. And kind of realizing after I started doing self development that we've been taught for a very long time the wrong ways to find a job. So I was working for a company that owns about 70 private colleges in Canada. I wrote them a book, which was kind of a manual on how to make sure that the career coaching is successful. It intimidated my VP that I could think for myself, so he threw me under the bus. Because I wrote it, I had all the rights to it. I've now since published 12 books. I've helped over 12,000 people land their dream job in as little as 2 days. That's the quick and short.
Yeah, that's amazing. Though. That's amazing. 12,000 people. Um, what really is that? Like, is it a certain thing that it really inspired you to focus on helping others find the jobs that they love? And how did you develop your 90% success rate?
So it's a combination of, look, because I switched careers so many times and I worked in different industries, I started looking at patterns. When I started doing self-development courses like I did the Tony Robbins Walk of Fire, there's an exercise where he spends 7 hours mentally preparing you to walk on burning coals. And after I did that exercise, I'm like, how come no one's teaching this to job finding or to job seekers kind of thing? And so I started kind of gathering the best practices of every single person that or experts that were on the market and kind of seeing what they're saying, what are the patterns, why are they saying certain things. And through that, I've developed systems and tools and techniques that, I've kind of realized here's the mistakes that most people make. So if I may quickly, for example, the majority of people, when they look for a job, default to Indeed. Indeed is one of the worst places to look for a job because the success rate on Indeed is less than 5%, right? And one job posting on Indeed gets between 350 and 5,000 resumes. Most companies look at the first 100. So unless you know the following tricks, first is most job boards like Indeed, Glassdoor, Career Builder, and so forth refresh their database between 11:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 2:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So depending on when you go to sleep, going to your resume, press spacebar, save. The moment that you press spacebar anywhere on your resume or anything on your resume and press save, you've made a change to your resume. So now you're actually going to get caught on that refresh that's daily happening in terms of progress, for example. So what
Yes.
happens is if you posted a resume, let's say in September, October, and you haven't touched it until today, you're probably on page 6,000 of the database. Nobody sees you. The other thing is, we've been taught for a very long time to write resumes that have action words like managed, directed, liaised, coordinated. Here's the reality though, that's not what the applicant tracking system is measuring. What it's measuring is the technical words associated with your profession. So, for example, if you are an accountant, the word accountant, accounting, financial statements, general ledger, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, those is what are the words that are being measured hardworking, dedicated, committed, or managed directly A's because, yeah, we want to sound better, but we're not actually measuring the correct things. And then the third kind of most important trick, and this is one that I initially told Monster to do in 2006 and took them 4 years to implement what my genius understood back then, was that the closer these technical words are to your name, the higher you match on job scoring. So if your technical skills are on page 2 of your resume, you're not getting scored. If you mention technical words once, but you never repeat them again in your resume, you're not getting scored well. And so learning these patterns, learning behaviors, learning different things allowed me to start, first of all, giving free lectures to people. I went to like an unemployment center and I was like, hey, can I do a workshop here for free? And there was 50 people in attendance. And all of a sudden, I got emails saying, "Oh my God, I found a job within 2 weeks. I found this," and it started kind of ballooning from there. I was like, okay, stumbled onto something, but because I've switched careers so much, I really enjoyed the aspect of the job finding and the helping people and making a difference in the world.
I like that. I like that. I mean, that's something that the average person doesn't really know. Myself, you know, I've had a couple jobs, not I haven't switched jobs as much as you have. You know what I mean? My actual what I go to now is LinkedIn is the main thing that I really go as far as on. Um,
Look, I love LinkedIn, but there's other resources. So most people spend time on Indeed a lot. That's a waste of time. So 10% of your job search should be Indeed. 25% of your job search should be employment agencies, recruiters, staffing firm, whatever you call them, that are, kind of in your or have jobs in your niche. Now, I recommend to register with 6 to 10 agencies. The reason being is I assume half of them will not like you. They don't like your accent, they don't like your age, they don't like your background, they don't like companies that you work for. It doesn't matter. But in North America, we're very polite. We're not going to tell you that we don't like you. We're just going to kind of ignore you or ghost you. Unfortunately, it's common in the job market. But employment agencies already have contacts with the companies that you're trying to get to. So if they like you and you register, let's say, with 6, and 3 of them go, wow, you know what, Alex is amazing, I want to represent him, they earn money on placing you and they get you into those companies that you're trying to get to on your own. 25% of your job search should be LinkedIn and other social media, because a lot of companies now have fan pages, not only on LinkedIn, but also on Facebook and on Instagram and so forth. And if you become part of that conversation, they will start looking you up and start finding you. Right. And the next part, 25% should be networking and asking for referrals. And then the last 15%, which is probably the hardest and takes the longest, is to actually, let's say, pick 10 companies that you want or 20 companies that you really want to work for, and then target them directly by, let's say, as in a quick example, I had a friend that graduated mechanical engineering, was every entry level job, he was told he needs 5 years of experience. So he printed 20 copies of the resume, went to the first company and said, I want to speak to the director. They looked at me like, do you have an appointment? He's like, no. And they're like, he's busy. He's like, okay, I'll wait. And he sat there at reception until about 2:30 in the afternoon. At 2:30 in the afternoon, the director finally came out and was like, okay, I understand you've been waiting for me all day. How can I help you? And my friend was like, look, I know you're not hiring right now, but here's my resume. I just graduated in mechanical engineering. These are some of the projects I work. They ended up having a 10-minute conversation right there at reception. And he was offered the job because he was the only one that was willing to sit and wait for something to happen, as opposed to, waiting for a response on Indeed or waiting for a response on this. And so even on LinkedIn, you send your resume, and even though most job postings say, don't call us, we'll call you, this is the biggest mistake that most people make, is they wait and then they wonder why they're not getting called. And today it's even more of a gong show because half of the companies or half of HR is terrified of AI and the other half is trying to use AI. But they've jumped on the bandwagon where they haven't defined what makes, let's say, a good resume. So one resume scanner or AI resume scanner will score, if you have, let's say, 20 out of 25 keywords that they're looking for, they'll score you and give you partial points. If you have 8 years of experience, but they need 10 years experience, you'll get partial points. Another will go, oh, you're missing 5 technical scores. We're not going to score you at all. Or you don't have full 10 years. We're not scoring you at all. And what's happened with this AI is that there's now no standard of measuring or quantifying whether or not it's a good resume. And so people are kind of a lot more frustrated. But even on LinkedIn, if you're going through like the company portal or you're going through that, just basically call HR and say one of these 3 things. First, my computer just crashed. I'm not sure if my application went through. Can you check? Or my battery died just as I was pressing send. Can you confirm that my application went through? Or my internet's been wonky all day. Can you check that my application went through? Now here's what happens. If, let's say, a company has 300 applications and you're 103rd, they only look at the first 100. So you're not even getting looked at. When you call and HR looks for your resume, you're off first on that list, right? Because they had to pull your resume. Now you've got 2 minutes to kind of do your elevator pitch and tell them why Alex is a great candidate, for example, and also check with them, when are they starting to interview? Because if they say, oh, we're going to start interviewing in a week, it's okay, if I don't hear from you in a week, may I have permission to call you back and ask for feedback on my resume as to why I wasn't selected the first time? Now you're planting a seed that, hey, if we didn't like anybody from the first 100, let's reconsider Alex because you're being proactive, you're being diligent. And a lot of people today, unfortunately, are very passive when they apply for jobs. They send out resumes, go, I'm going to wait. And, and they make the same mistakes. And so I've built systems on teaching people, stop doing these mistakes because they're killing you. Literally, in a sense of, instead of finding a job in a month, it's taking you 6 months to a year because you're being passive and you're waiting for the systems to recognize you.
Yeah, that's like even myself, and I consider myself a pretty smart guy. Those are things that I never thought about as far as trying to get ranked higher and stuff like that. Especially with AI coming in now, that's one of the big things that everybody's using AI. Everybody's using AI, so it's I would say it's harder in most people cases to be seen because now so many more people are putting in applications. The economy has been sometimes been high, sometimes been low, and I think just a lot of those things people don't think about. They just if somebody say, "Hey, sit back, we're going to call you," they're just going to listen to what they're saying because they're the ones who's actually posting a job.
Exactly. But I'm going to relate it because I love relating it to this, right? Alex, if you approached somebody that you're attracted to and went, hi, can I get your number? What are your chances?
Not good at all.
Right, slim and none, because they might be physically attracted to you, so they'll try to give you a few minutes to strike up a conversation with them. But in the same respect, if you go to an employer and say, please, please, please give me a job, I'm really hardworking, one of two things will happen. One, they won't hire you because you don't have confidence in yourself. Or two, even worse, they will hire you because they know you're desperate and therefore they'll take advantage and pay you nothing in order to hire you because they know that they can get away with it, for example. But if you come in and with the confidence of like, listen, this is who I am, this is kind of there, right? Psychologically speaking, the two things that most women look for in a guy are confidence and sense of humor, right? So it's the same thing in the job. If you come in with a confidence, like these are the results I produce, this is how good I am at what I do, this is how much money I'll make you or I'll save you, or how I will increase your efficiency, companies will listen to you that way. They won't listen to you from, oh, please, please give me a job type of environment. Now, again, for example, one of the things that people more often than not do extremely wrong is networking. People go to networking and go, oh, you're a VP? Here's my resume. Can I get a job? I don't know you,
Right.
right? You haven't earned the right to it, right? And most people, like, I can't, like, I go to networking events a lot, like probably 3 a week if at a minimum. I've had conversations like with people where people are walking by, you sound important. Can I get your card? And then they email me going, here's my resume. Can I get a job? I'm like, what's your name? Who are you? Did I even speak to you? Kind of thing. Right. So I teach people, for example, when you go to networking, first of all, brand yourself. So my favorite color is purple. I don't know if it's showing here, but I'm wearing like a purple hoodie right now. When I go networking, I have on a purple shirt. I have purple pens. I have a purple bag. My business cards are purple, right? Why? Because if there is, let's say, thousands of people at an event, right? When I email a company or somebody say, hey, I'm the guy in purple, they might not remember my name, but they'll remember the purple. So for guys, you can choose a particular color. You can have, let's say, if you're like, there's a guy I know that wears fedoras and they're like neon color, like yellow, orange, green, but everybody knows him as the fedora guy. You can have a funny tie. You can have a pin or brooch. You can have, again, like if you're wearing blue, gray, black, brown, the beige kind of thing, those are the standard colors. It's hard to be distinguished. So have a signature look or brand, even if it's a watch, even if it's a necklace, even if it's a earring. For women, there's a ton more because they can accessorize so many things, right? That they can kind of there. Even if your glasses, if you have glasses that are like unique, like okay, great, those are conversation starters, for example. But when you go to an event where there's people at a higher level that you're trying to kind of connect with, make the conversation about them. So like start like I meet you, Alex, let's say you're a director. Alex, you're a director. Can you tell me what made you so successful in your career? Ask them that, right? And then go, okay, what would you say are your three biggest accomplishments or achievements? Kind of thing. Why? Because you want them to brag. People intrinsically love to brag about how great they are. And unless that director is interviewing for a job themselves, other than their partner, they don't really get an opportunity to go, here's how great I am, and to brag about that. But after you ask them about how great they are, then you can start to just go, if you were mentoring somebody in this industry, what would you focus on teaching them? Listen to what they're saying. And then say, listen, I am in this industry. Would you mind critiquing my resume or giving me feedback? Don't ask for the job. Ask for feedback on it. Why? Because if they give you feedback on the resume, they're writing the resume they want to see for their team. Right? And then if you thank them after they did that and go, listen, I love talking to you. I learned so much from you. You're such a spectacular leader. I would love to be part of your team, right? I can learn from you and like I want to prove results to you. I want to make you look better. What do you think your chances are of getting hired if you had a conversation while networking saying, what made you successful? What are your three biggest achievements? How would you mentor somebody? As opposed to, hey, I'm Joseph. Can I get a job?
Yeah, I mean, you probably, more so like 80% because it's you having that conversation and focusing on the key points of, hey, I want to get better, I want to be successful.
And you're
You
making it
show,
about them. Exactly. You're making it about them as opposed to me kind of thing, right? But same thing. Like, again, I go to events where, like, for example, if you've ever been to Las Vegas to an event, there's tens of thousands of people that go there. If you show up and you're wearing, typical dress clothes and there's nothing about you to be remembered, it's there. So even on the resumes, I tell people, add some personality, add a little bit of color, change the font from Times New Roman, Calibri, or Cambia because those are the three most common, or Arial, or four most common fonts in Microsoft Word if you're using kind of a PC versus a Mac, right? Change the formatting, have columns, have bars, have something that helps kind of distinguish you. Now, the other thing that I think the biggest mistake that most people make on their resume is people say, I know how to do this or I have experience in this. Here's the reality. Nobody cares. And I'm going to use, if I may, Alex, give two examples here
yeah,
to demonstrate that because most people laugh at the first one and they get the second one. If you're applying to be a receptionist somewhere and you say, I know how to answer the phone, I hope that company looks at you in shock and goes, really? A receptionist that knows how to answer the phone? We did not know that. Because unless you live in a cave, in an igloo, or you practice the faith of Mennonite, my 2-year-old son can press the green button and go, hello, right? But if you come and say, I know how to answer 60 calls a day with 12 different lines, I can measure 60 calls a day with 12 different lines. I cannot measure, I know how to answer the phone. Now, if I use an example from my own career, Alex, I can say to you, Alex, I'm an excellent salesperson. I know how to do B2B, B2C, account management, relationship building, lead generation. I've worked in retail. I've done door-to-door sales. I've done car sales. I've worked in private education. I've worked in recruiting. I know how to do sales. Now, all the words I just mentioned, those are very important for the algorithm of Indeed, LinkedIn, and anything that's online in terms of your resume profile, for example. But here's the thing, just because I told you I have a lot of sales experience doesn't prove that I'm any good at sales. Because just because you sold lemonade when you were 10 years old doesn't make you a salesperson.
that's right.
Now, if I give you a real example, like I work for a private college that before I came in generated $530,000 in sales for the entire year. In 1 month, I generated $860,000 in revenue. Which one would convince you that I know how to sell? All of the words or the example with numbers?
They say numbers don't lie, so
Exactly. Right. Now, here's the thing that even your reaction, you were like, right. If somebody's interviewing me, the next question would be how. And as long as I can explain the how, right, then they can understand how good of a salesperson I am. So, regardless of the profession that you're in, if you're in kind of programming, right, did you make it faster? Did you make it better? Did you make it more efficient? Did you create better user interface? Did you create this, right? Did you create 10,000 lines of code in 2 days, or did it take you a month, for example? Those are things that anything can be quantifiable. But what's happening is that, there is a level where we've kind of become so used to going, I know how to do this, I have experience in this. Well, this is why you're not getting a job, because there's thousands of people that are applying for the same job that have similar experience. Unless you've worked for Google or Meta or Amazon, where as soon as you've been in those companies, by default you get hired anywhere else, or you've gone to Harvard, Yale, Stanford, kind of there, the average person has to prove that they're better than the competition, or they bring ideas that are original, or they bring something to the table that's different than everybody else, right? And it's so, again, I love to tie this in. It's the same. If you've ever watched the movie Hitch, right, with Will Smith, right, when they're at the bar and they're playing pool, and he walks over to the girl and gives her 20, goes, here, can I get a couple beers? And she chases him and was like, hey, I don't work here. And he's like, I know. And he's like, well, why would you give me money and ask for a beer? Because there was 20 guys hovering around those two girls, and he wanted to get her undivided attention. He did something different than everybody else, right? It's no different in the job search.
I like that. I like the example too because Hitch. I watched that. It's been a long time since I watched it, but that's one of my favorite movies. But yeah. So let's skip to this. So what are your 7 simple rules to stand out and get hired during an interview?
So I'm going to give you a few of them. I kind of alluded to one of them. And can I share a quick story before kind of explaining these rules?
Oh yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
So my brother studied mechanical engineering, applied for an internship. By the time one of the companies responded to him, he already registered for his 4th-year classes. When we looked at the job description, it was going to be more of a paper pusher than a pure engineer. So he's like, cancel the interview. I decided to go in as my brother. I studied economics and business. The only thing I know about mechanical engineering is what I wrote for him on his resume. My first interview, there was 100 students from 4 major universities in Toronto, Canada. And within 45 minutes, human resource called me back and said, we love you. We need to come back for a second interview. I was like, all right, let's see how far I could take this. My second interview was with the manager of the department that I would potentially work with. Again, I spoke the truth about my brother's resume. So my brother was in a team that designed a wheelchair for third world nations that used a tank chain so it can go on any terrain, right? Came second in Ontario for the best mechanical engineering project of the year. Told the manager that I studied thermodynamics and quantum physics. To this day, I have no idea what those are, right? Didn't even leave the parking lot. Manager calls me back and said, I adore you. I need to come back for a third and final interview. Out of 100 candidates, I made it to the final 3. I was the first one in at 8:30 in the morning. The manager walked over and goes, here's your offer letter. The job is yours. All you have to do is pass this mechanical engineering test. I looked at him. I looked at the test. I looked at him. I looked at him. I'm like, I can't do this test. Manager looked at me and goes, I know you're nervous. Let me help you. He solved the first 2 questions for me. I looked at him. I'm like, listen, I am so sorry for wasting your time. I guess I'm a lot more comfortable with the design than I am with the calculations. I'm not the right guy for this job. Thank you for the opportunity. Manager followed me to the car and begged me to take the job because I'd interviewed that much better than every other mechanical engineer. And I did these 7 simple things to get that job. Number 1, I came into the interview with confidence that I already have the job, right? If you've ever worked somewhere and they come to you and say, Alex, we want to promote you, they don't say, Alex, tell me about yourself. They say, Alex, you're doing a pretty good job. We like what you're doing. We'd like to give you a little bit more money, a little bit more responsibility. Are you interested? For example, right? So come in with that confidence that you already have the job. Number 2, okay, again, eye contact, right? If you're shy or it's against your culture to look directly into the eyes, look above the eyebrows. It's a martial arts trick that gives you peripheral vision. It gives a person the respect that they deserve, but doesn't go against what you believe in. But eye contact, smile. 95% of people in an interview forget to smile because they're nervous. Smiling will release endorphins that will help you relax. Also, smiling creates a conversation rather than question, answer. Because I'm sure you've experienced, Alex, where someone says hi to you, and the way they said hi to you, like, I don't like this guy or that person, right? Because just the way they didn't smile, like, hi. And you're like, I don't know what it is about this person, but I don't like them, kind of thing. So smile, because it builds rapport. And third part of rule number 2 is, especially if it's a in-person interview, firm handshake, right? Show that you're serious. In some cultures, like Asian cultures, especially women, they do kind of like a 2-finger handshake sometimes. Again, if it's against your religious belief to, let's say, touch the opposite sex or do the handshake, just acknowledge it. Like, it's against my religion, so I apologize, I can't shake your hand. They will respect you a lot more for at least owning who you are rather than just kind of being fake about it. Rule number 3, this one is, I kind of said about networking earlier. No matter what the question is, it's not about you. It's about them. Okay? So let's just say that you don't have a lot of experience, and on your resume you wrote that your hobby is, for example, playing basketball. So they say, okay, tell me about basketball. They really don't care about basketball. They really don't. Your answer needs to be, my passion and dedication for basketball is the kind of passion and dedication I'll give your company, right? Even if they have a basketball team and they need players on their team, it's not about basketball. They're hiring you to do a specific job, not play basketball, right? So, like, a lot of really bad interviewers will start an interview with, tell me about yourself. It's one of the worst, most loaded questions in the history, because people start rambling. I love to travel and I love to be active. It has nothing to do with the job. Who cares? Who cares? So if they ask you that redundant question, in my opinion, look them in the eyes or above the eyebrows, smile and say, where would you like me to begin? Whatever they tell you to begin, they've just hinted to you, this is important. Otherwise, we wouldn't care enough to ask you about it, right? Rule number 4, why does any business exist, Alex?
To make money.
To make money. So some to all of your answers should have the statement, if you hire me, I'll make you more money. Or if you hire me, I'll save you more money. Or if you hire me, I'll increase your efficiency, which all mean the same thing, right? But Bill Gates, I'm sure you've heard of, right, has a foundation that has about $200 billion in the foundation. But he still does fundraising every single month to make sure that when he passes, his legacy of making a difference in the world continues for many, 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 many years, right? So no matter what profession you're there not because there's an empty chair and it looks weird that there's an empty chair in the office. You're there to make money, save money, or increase efficiency. So depending on the position, depending on your personality, this one's kind of optional, but necessary at least twice in the interview to kind of mention, kind of thing. Rule number 5, this is the heart of the interview. Instead of saying my responsibilities were, I know how to answer the phone, who doesn't, right? Say, I want you to use one of the following 9, we'll call them power words: proud, significance, success, contributions, achievements, accomplishments, results, importance, and impact. Now, if you're proud of something, I'm proud of the fact that I built a call center from scratch. Does that sound like you're proud? If you're proud, your chest will be out, your shoulder blades will be back, you're speaking from your diaphragm, you're going to be excited. And that's going to tie back to rule number 1, which is your confidence, right? Because you're speaking with energy. So depending on how you normally speak, you can use these 9 words again: proud, significant, success, contributions, achievements, accomplishments, results, importance, and impact. You can use them at the beginning of the sentence, you can use them in the middle of the sentence, or you can use them at the end. So I'm really proud of the fact that I did this, or I was responsible for doing this, this, and this. I'm proud of the fact that, I surpassed my expectations, for example. Or, while working on this team, we did this, this, and this in terms of the technical background, and we achieved really high results in terms of recognition for finishing the project below budget and on time, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm really proud of that fact. I usually recommend to people start with the power word because it builds the conversation, builds the energy. Like, one of my biggest accomplishments is I built a call center from scratch that, when I was hired, was expected to generate an extra $300,000 for the year, with restrictions that my team calls leads that are more than 4 months old and more than 50 miles from the nearest campus. In less than 6 months, my team did $2.25 million, right? Again, this is a true example of something from my career. But notice when I start with proud, my energy in speaking to you, Alex, is very different than, yeah, I built a call center and it was very successful and blah, blah, blah kind of scenario. So use that. And again, quantify numbers, dollar figures, percentage figures, time figures, inventory figures, macros, templates, policies, procedures, documentation that you personally created or contributed to, right? Because that's what I'm measuring. If you have if you're younger and you don't have as much experience and you have extracurricular activities, were you on a sports team that you were the MVP or that the team won the championship? Do you play piano? Do you play grade 10 piano? Do you play? Because here's the thing, I don't play piano. I know grade 10 means a lot of dedication to playing piano, kind of thing, right? So there's a level where even if you say to me, I'm grade 5 piano, I know that requires a level of commitment for it. I don't know what the grades mean, but I know it requires commitment to it, right? If you play any sports and you've played a little bit more competitively, there's a commitment of time and energy, of practice, of, kind of thing. So those are examples. So again, proud, significant success, contributions, achievements, accomplishments, results, importance, impact, and quantify. Because if you can quantify that, rule number 1 becomes automatic. Rule number 2, you're smiling when you say those things. Your energy is up. You're making it about them because you're like, I made this much money for this company. If you hire me, I'll make more for you because I've already learned what needs to be done, right? You're going back. Rule number 6, 2 parts to rule number 6. First, your strength. For the love of whatever higher power you believe in, please do not tell me that you're hardworking, dedicated, committed, or a team player with excellent communication and interpersonal skills. In 20 years of recruiting, I've met very few people that say, listen, I'm lazy, I'll show up late, none of my work will be any good, and I really, really hate people. Please hire me. The only time that works is if you're related to somebody in the company or you're having an affair with them, right? So for your strength, again, think about it in ways of how can you quantify results? I was asked to do this project. I finished it $100,000 on a budget. So I finished it this fast, or I achieved these things, and they didn't expect that. Even though they're asking you for 3 words of strength, it doesn't. Don't just give me the words, because your definition of hardworking and my definition of hardworking could be very, very different. I'm going to use a very simple example. If I compare an accountant during tax season to a nurse that was working during the pandemic. So during tax season, an accountant is expected to work 80 hours a week. So what's hardworking? 100, right? And if I compare that to a nurse that during the pandemic, especially at the beginning of the pandemic where everybody was so super stressed, had to work 4 hours of overtime, does that mean that the nurse is less hardworking than the accountant because she only worked 4 hours of overtime? No, because there's different levels of stress. There's different levels of expectations, right? You can't just say hardworking. You have to define it. And this is a mistake that most people, they just give me a word, right? So, for example, when I interview people, I will modify the question by saying, if I were to ask you, Alex, one of your best friends, to describe you in 3 or 4 words, as if they're going to set you up on a date, how would they describe you for a date? If your answer is hardworking, dedicated, committed, and team player, worst date in history.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Now, also, if you go, I'm outgoing and bubbly and energetic, and that's the way you're answering me, no, you're not. You're just trying to give me words that sound good. Because if you're outgoing, you're energetic, the vibe should be different, for example. Right? Which brings me to the part B of rule number 6, your weaknesses. Most people hate this question. Understand that the design of this question is not to see that you're perfect. The design of the question is to make sure that if something goes wrong, the company can give you some feedback and you're not going to go post on that, right? Now, most people default to, I'm a perfectionist, I'm too hard on myself. Again, it's boring, it doesn't really say anything. So I usually teach these 2 ways to answer this question. The first is to kind of make fun of yourself. So comedians do this a lot. They create a character. Well, my mom tells me I'm perfect, or my partner tells me I'm perfect, or something. But if I had to think of something, I'd probably say my time management or whatever, kind of, right? But the moment that you create a character as opposed to you're a perfectionist, if you've done it correctly, the interviewer will probably kind of chuckle a little bit or smile and go, okay, kind of there, right? Because, like, for example, do you know who Russell Peters is as a comedian?
I don't think I've heard of him.
Okay, so he makes fun of like everybody's culture, right? But when he says really racist jokes, for example, he always puts in like my father or my uncle is the most racist person you've ever met, because then he can tell the racist joke. You're gonna laugh at the joke. You're gonna be angry at uncle or father or whatever, not at him directly, kind of thing, right? So it's a technique used in comedy very, very well. But that's one. The other example of the weakness is what I call the past, present, future rule. Now, rather than explaining it to you, let me give you a quick example. So in the past, I used to have a problem with time management. Then I got hired by company ABC to do a project with 10 people. If my work didn't get done, none of their work got done. Now, the nature of the project required us to constantly reprioritize the work that we were doing. So we had to learn how to communicate very quickly and very effectively to each other. Not only did we finish the project, 6 months ahead of schedule, but we actually came in $100,000 on the budget, and we got recognized as one of the best teams in the company. Because of this experience with company ABC, I can assure you that time management is no longer a problem, and I would do whatever it takes to make your great company more money. Now, let's review what I just did here. Number one, did I have confidence?
For sure.
Number two, did I look at you and smile?
Yes.
Number three, did I make it about them?
Yes.
Number four, did I tell you I was going to make you more money, save you more money, or increase your efficiency?
Yes.
Number five, did I give you specific quantifiable examples to show you?
Mm-hmm.
So I took a weakness and I made it a strength by giving a great example. And this is something that a lot of people don't do because they're like, oh, my weakness is, my computer skills can be improved. Like everybody's computer skills can be improved, kind of thing. It doesn't necessarily impress, but when you can kind of show that you've done something to improve, like you've gone on Coursera, you've done on Udemy, and you've done courses to better yourself. Again, we're not expecting perfection. We're expecting the fact that there's some level of willingness to grow. And rule number 7, I did this very subtly, right, is suck up wherever possible. Now, suck up wherever possible is not just, oh, this sounds great, I love to work. And notice that in my weakness example, I said, for great company. I didn't just say your company, I said you're great. Why? Because that's a form of sucking up. Now, when you suck up, it's also questions that you ask in the end of the interview. I recommend to ask between 3 to 10 questions. 2 to 3 questions about the role and how it fits into the organizations or the responsibility. And these are 3 of my favorite questions to ask at the end of an interview because you can really tell if you got the job. First question is, if I were hired tomorrow, what is the first thing I can do to make an immediate impact? Notice it's one of my 9 words. What do you think happens to your interviewer when you're asking about making an immediate impact? You're just another person or somebody that's eager to come in and, be great,
Yeah,
right?
definitely you're dedicated. You want to come in and show them what you can do.
Right. Second question, again, similar style is, what would you say is the biggest obstacle for success in this position? Now, whatever they say their obstacle is, even if you've given them examples, go back to that example and give them an example of why it's not an obstacle for you, right? So you would say the biggest obstacle for success in this position is to understand the way we do this, this, and this. Okay, well, since I've worked here and I've been promoted, I had to learn this system, this system, this system. I was able to do it this quickly, and because of that, I was able to produce these results. So this wouldn't be an obstacle for me, for example, right? And again, here's the thing that's very important: that if you're giving an example and an employer asks you to expand on it or to give a second similar example, they just gave you a massive hint. This is what you're going to be doing on the job. Ding, ding, ding. We like what we're hearing. Keep going because you're now the standard for us to hire someone because your examples are what matters to us, right? And the last question to ask, that again, it's kind of a two-parter. First part is, of other people that currently hold this position or have held this position, what are some of the characteristics you'd like to see repeated? They're telling you who they want to hire, right? And then if you want to know if you're getting the job, ask them, and how do you see me fitting in? If they hesitate, if they're mumbling, if they have to think about it, you're not getting the job. If they answer you right away because of your examples, they're impressed by you and you're in the running, kind of thing. Right now, there's like I've written a few books on this, so I have a list of 300 questions that you can ask. But again, the questions are geared towards the same 9 words that I used in rule number 5: proud, significant, success, contributions, achievements, accomplishments, results, importance, impact, kind of thing. Because again, if you're asking questions like, what is the most important thing to achieve in this role? They're telling you what they need from you. They're telling you what the expectation of the job is, right? And as long as you've given them examples that demonstrate, and even if you, again, if you haven't, this is your opportunity to go back and give a second example.
Right. So, as a Guinness World Record participant, how has that experience influenced your approach to career development and goal setting?
Here's the thing: I have a lot more things to achieve. The Guinness World Record was the most authors signing the exact same book at the exact same time, with I think 151 of us did that or something like that. But again, I'm the type of person that there's an adage in English that says, the moment you stop learning is the moment you start dying. Right? That is true for work. That is true for relationships. That's true for anything. Even though I've invested 30,000 hours to master pretty much everything there's to know about job finding, right? I always go to workshops. I listen to other experts to see if what I'm saying is similar to them, different, and why is it different? Because there's a lot of experts that might be getting a lot of views on TikTok or Instagram, for example, but they regurgitate stuff that's been doing for the past 70 years. And yes, that works, but I'm trying to focus on kind of helping people level up higher. I'm trying to focus on, let's say, white collar professionals that have already been working 5, 10 years that don't need to be told, don't chew gum before you go to an interview, that don't need to be told, don't smoke a cigarette before going to an interview, right? Because they're already professionals, they already understand that. They're trying to kind of get to that level of recognition, pay, status where there's nuances that can shift. Because let's say once you get to manager and then all the way to C-level executive, they all have to do reporting, budgeting, forecasting, scheduling, delegation of work, right? The difference between manager and director is that director starts doing strategy, right? And kind of goes, here's the vision. And then the manager goes, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this, we'll put it together, right? Director is more strategy, vision. VP goes in even more into like big picture, not just immediate day-to-day stuff, but what is our game plan for the next 5 years to actually do that? C-level is the one that kind of, we'll call it, does it on a larger scale of like, what are our competitors doing that we need to kind of, hone in on and be as good or better than them, right? So there's levels of kind of things that you look at and go, okay, we need to kind of start there. So telling me that you know how to budget or forecast or do reporting, again, if you have a title of manager or more, everybody does it. So just because you did a 2-page report for me, should I be impressed with that? Again, if this 2-page report summarizes 30 different things, I'm impressed with the 2-page report, right? But if you just give me a 2-page report because it's part of your job to go, here's how many people worked this week, here is how many hours they did. Okay, like technically speaking, anybody can do that. And even if they don't know how to do that, it's not that complicated. I always love to refer to the show Undercover Boss, right? It's one of my favorite shows. I'm always amused at the end of the show when the executive goes, oh my God, I should speak to the people that work here. I might get some insights on how to do things better, right? And you think? Really? Like the, recognition and awards, like here's the money, is great. And some of them have been incredible. And I love that show can make such an impact. But it's same thing with Shark Tank. If you look at people that come in and go, here's my idea, but I have no idea how to run my business, how to know which direction I want to go, they never get a deal. The people that kind of go, here's my vision, here's how I'm doing it, this is what we've done so far, this is our next step, those are the ones that are getting the deal. Because at the end of the day, look, some of these ideas on, let's say, Shark Tank and so forth, I'm like, in a million years, I would never have thought of that as a business or as a this, because It's not something that I like, like let's just use like cultural food. Like I've been to Jamaica, but I wouldn't be like, okay, let me think of how I can improve Jamaican food right now. Like that's not my culture. That's not who I am. I'm not a chef by training. It's not something that now if I go and go, oh, this ice cream is amazing, maybe I can have an exclusive license and sell it in North America through Jamaica, great. But again, you have to be in the mindset that this is what you want to focus energy and time on. In my case, you asked me at the beginning of the show what caused me to become a career, like a resume whisperer and a corporate culturist. Experiences. I kind of, you know, I did the mistake that everybody does, which is I tried to get a career that pays well. I tried to get a career that pleases my parents. I worked in finance for 7 years. You could not pay me $1 million to go work in a bank ever again, unless I was hired as a senior VP, where I was allowed to change the way that they treat their people. Because I was a stock trader for the banks, and I felt I could probably get better treatment in prison than working as a stock trader for the bank. Now, that's my experience. It doesn't mean it's true for everybody. I worked as a stock trader. I saw the tickers go up and down. I don't enjoy spending 8 hours looking at the screen going up and down, and so forth. Like, yeah, it's exciting when you can make, hundreds of $1,000s in an hour if you've executed the right trades. But to me, I want to make a difference in the world. I want to make an impact in the world. Looking at a stock go up and down drains my energy. It's not something that, and usually, especially as a stock trader, most people yelling at you that they've had to wait on the phone for a half hour, that they've just lost money, there, etc. So it's not necessarily the happy-go-lucky environment type of environment. So you got to understand, there's people that work in banking that love it. More power to them. It's not for me to judge what's correct for you, but I can kind of guide you. When I speak to people like, I'm looking to change careers, I don't know what to do. My first question is, well, I have two questions. The first one is the SI principle: security, income, growth, or happiness. Which one would you put first? Because if it's security, you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be an accountant, you're going to be a nurse, because there's always a job, right? If it's income, you're going to be in sales, you're going to be in marketing. If it's growth, you're driven by the title and the responsibility. And if it's happiness, those are professions like being a kindergarten teacher. It's not for the pay. You're doing it because you love kids, you love the interactions, you love the laughter with them, kind of thing, right? So based on that, I'm like, okay, these are things that you need to be aware of. Now, I respect that you might live in a certain city where it's more expensive, like New York, to live in. You have to maintain a certain standard of living. I'm not here to say no to that. My next question is, what are your passions? What are your hobbies or interests? Because it's not about getting a good job. It's getting a job that you love. I think Steve Jobs and a few other geniuses of our, of time have said, when you find something that you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. And so it took me a really long time to do this, because the reason I switched careers so many times is because I became the best at something and then I got bored. And when I got bored, I either quit or I got fired because I stopped caring, kind of thing. And this is why, like, I've worked in finance, I've worked in call centers, I've worked in sales, I've worked in operations, where I got to taste different things and went, I, like, for example, I hire good accountants because I don't want to look at Excel spreadsheets all day and just kind of calculate numbers, kind of thing. I love calculating stuff, but not as the only thing I do. The same reason I'm on your podcast, Alex, is because I want to share this message. I want to educate people to help them succeed. It doesn't serve me any good to just kind of help one person, help two. My personal gain, like right now, sadly, in North America, and I say North America, USA, Canada, there are approximately 60 million people that are unemployed. There's approximately 50 million people that are severely underemployed, meaning have a university degree but work at McDonald's, or a college degree and work at McDonald's. And then you have about 40 million people that are going through some sort of education or retraining, right? Indeed, being the biggest job board there is, brags that they have 50 million users, right? But here's the thing. I registered on Indeed 25 years ago. I still have recruiters emailing me going, you speak multiple languages. Do you want to work in a call center for the bank for $50,000? And I'm like, have you looked at my LinkedIn profile at all? Have you looked my name up at all? I've built call centers. Why would I want to be like an entry level person in a call center kind of thing? And like my response to them is, how old is the resume that you're looking at that you're making phone calls to me asking me if I want this job, for example? But similarly, there is a level where, again, like I said earlier, 50 million users, but less than 5% actually find jobs from Indeed, unless it's a blue collar job where it's quicker turnover. Like you work in construction, you're a welder, you're this. Those are usually very good. Indeed is very good for that, but generally speaking, for the white collar professionals, less successful. But here's the thing: even if they have 50 million users, there's 100 million people that still need help, that still don't know. My personal game is to help, let's say, 1.8 million people, right? And so there's a level where even if you copy, like you order my book, you look at some of my videos, and you copy me, Alex, and you do it twice as good as me, and you make twice as much money as me, I look at it as together we've helped more people. I'm not looking at it as competition, because here's the thing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to complain if I help all 150 million people find a better job. But at the end of the day, you might prefer to work with somebody who is culturally similar to you, right? You might prefer to work with someone who's more local to you, right? So I'm not here to say I'm going to help everybody. Understand, I focus on white collar professionals that have 5 years of experience plus. You want to help construction people, be my guest. That's not my niche. That's not my kind of there. I spoke to somebody yesterday who's a welder. He's like, I'm a new immigrant. I need help finding a job. And I looked at him and said, you know what? Don't pay any expert to write your resume. Go on ChatGPT, tell them that you're a welder, put in the places that you've worked, let ChatGPT. There's tools that you can use that are much cheaper than what I charge for a resume. But I said, don't waste your money on someone like me, because I feel guilty taking your money, because if you're a welder, it's physically going in person and speaking to like a welding company, or a construction kind of company site, whatever that it is, versus me writing a resume that says, here's how amazing you are, here's the result that you produce, that's geared towards white collar professionals with experience. But I kind of said, here's where you need to look. So I gave him resources, said, here's things that you can start doing right now, like type in employment agency welder and then the city that you're in, or recruitment firm welder, the city that you're in, or staffing firm there. Why those? Go on Eventbrite. Look if there's any like construction events that you can attend that is kind of, or career fairs that you can attend that relate to your profession, instead of paying me to do this stuff for you. So like, here's free resources, because you're not the demographic I'm working with, right? And so there's a level where I respect that I'm not for everybody, right? And again, there are certain things that I also respect that, no matter how much I want to tell you, you might not listen to me because, at least physically I look white, but might not connect to you, right? There's certain nuances in behaviors that might be different. Can I ask, where are you from, Alex? So they detected like a Alabama. I was gonna say like Southern accent a little bit there at the beginning. Now here's the thing: Alabama being kind of, if my geography is correct, Midwest, right, or Southwest,
So,
Southwest, right? So you might prefer someone who's from Alabama to speak to you, because Alabama might have its own subculture that's different from New York, that's different from me being in Toronto, Canada, in terms of how things are done and certain behaviors that are accepted and certain language nuances that kind of thing. So I might not be able to help you. That's fine. I don't lose sleep over that, because I trust that God will provide and will give me other opportunities. If you make twice as much money than me, they'll be like, all of a sudden, oh, this is a new opportunity for you, and we want you to spearhead this, and we want you to, and it'll come, But we weren't put on this earth to be miserable. Whatever higher being you believe in, we weren't put on this earth to be miserable and to suffer. We were put on this earth to make it a better place in one way or another. And some of us have figured out what our gifts are. Some of us still need to figure it out. And it's never too late. Listen, Colonel Saunders figured out KFC when he was 63, I think it was, if my there. So it's never too late. It's just a matter of honing in on what excites you.
So, sorry. Is there anything else that you want to tell the people right quick before we get out of here?
Again, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm very active on Facebook or most of the other social medias, but LinkedIn is probably the fastest and easiest for me. If you're thinking, hey, you know what, I've been stuck, I'm not getting anywhere, and you want my personal help to kind of get you there faster. Again, my success rate is that I found people their dream job in as little as 2 days, my wife included, with that. And, it's just a matter of kind of being different than everybody else. Like, start with your resume, add a little personality to it, add results so that I don't have to guess how good you are. Because here's the thing, Alex. Can I ask how many episodes you've had so far on your show?
I think when I checked it, there's probably about 80.
80. So there's a very big difference because after 80 episodes, you kind of have some of the mechanics and what's required down versus someone who's had 2 shows, for example, because even the questions, even the flow of the conversation changes as you have more experience with it, right? So there's a level of just recognizing that experience is experience, right? No one can take that away from you. And whatever you might think is small and insignificant could be the most important thing to the company that's interviewing you. My message is this: even in a bad economy, I don't see every company shutting down. I don't see Google, Meta, Amazon shutting down, right? There's always jobs. But if you're only looking at where 20% of the people look, which is Indeed, maybe LinkedIn, right? You're missing out on tons of opportunities that, again, all you need to do is hopefully listen to this episode and understand there's different ways to look for a job and different resources that you can use to help you, right? And if I'm not the expert for you, find someone who is. Whatever it is that you connect with, you want somebody in your industry, more power to you. You want someone that's culturally similar to you, more power to you, right? You want someone who's female, you want someone who's male. Again, it's not a right or wrong. It is a matter of, every successful person has mentors, has coaches. Find the right mentors and coaches for you, because when you do, there's no limit as to what can be achieved.
I agree. So I want to take this time to tell you I appreciate you coming on the show today, and I'm talking with myself and then the people that'll be watching this, and giving them different strategies and things like that to overall improve their job searching and interviewing process as well. So I definitely thank you for coming on the show today and talk to us about that.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit of my experience and knowledge with your listeners and with yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No problem at all. So everybody that's watching, you guys make sure you go to the description. You'll find all of his information, social media, ways to get in contact with him. You guys go support, go reach out to him if you're trying to look for a job. Hey, some people that I know maybe been unemployed for a few months. He may just be what you need.
Again, even if you start listening to the tools I gave, like the 5 strategies to job, like Indeed or on job boards, 10% of your time, LinkedIn and other social media, 25% of your time, and be active on it, right? Networking, 25% of your time, right? Employment agencies, 25% of your time, and then 15% strategically. I want to hit these companies, for example. And again, even on Indeed, be a little bit proactive in that. Call them and use the 3 kind of examples of why your application. You can even say, I never got a confirmation. Can you check? As long as they check, boom, you're at the top of the list. And then you got 2 minutes to kind of go, here's why I'm great. Here's what I've done. Here's what I can do for you, right? When are you hiring? And then have that conversation, right? You're going to go networking, brand yourself, right? Like, I noticed that you have your very creative kind of image in the corner there of yourself, Alex, right? But have a signature look, have a signature style that's kind of that you own. And when you go networking, especially with networking where there's higher level people, make the conversations about them. Ask them about their success, ask them about their career, ask them about how they mentor people, what is their leadership style, whatever it is to get them to brag about the fact that they are great. The moment you do, you're opening the doors to kind of, okay, can I get feedback on my resume? And now that they've given you feedback and written the resume that they want to see, why they should actually hire you, because you've earned their trust and their respect.
Right. I agree. So, everybody out there watching, like I said, you guys go support him. Reach out to him if you have any questions, concerns, or whatever the case may be. But thank you all for tuning in. You guys have just watched another episode of All in All with Alex, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Thank you again, Alex.
Yes, sir. Thank you.